Hi everyone, welcome to On Deck. My name is Ten, and I'm a third generation tarot reader, a writer, and a mentor with the Center for Creative Writing. We are currently working our way through the major arcana of the tarot and lining up the fool's journey of the major arcana with the narrative arc of our main character. So this month for July, the card is the Moon. This is the card of Cancer, and we are just about to leave Cancer season and move into Leo season. But this is the card for Cancer. It is a lot about kind of the subconscious. It is about illusions, fear, anxiety, and how we get through it. Okay, so if you look at the moon, right, we have this lobster here that is surfacing from the body of water, and that represents our subconscious coming to the forefront and becoming conscious and motivating and directing our movements, our goals, our path forward, right? We see this path, it cuts through the hills and then into the woods over those mountains. We have the dog and the wolf on each side, and that kind of represents evolution, right? Dogs have evolved from wolves. So we have this kind of two parts of our inner self, which is the more domesticated side, the more uh congenial, getting along with everyone's side. And we have the wolf side, which is our instincts, that's the more kind of feral or untamed aspect of ourselves. So we have these two kind of competing sides that are surrounding us as we move on this journey. Okay. The thing that I like to keep in mind with the moon card is that it's like you're going through a forest, right? And there's a full moon and there's just enough light to see the next step in front of you, right? You can't see what's around you. You can't see into the dark of the woods. You can just see enough to make the next step, okay? And when you get through, right, you reach the top of the mountain or you get through the forest, you think, I don't know how I made it through that forest because I didn't know where I was going. I was just taking my next best step, right? And that's a metaphor for getting through hard things, facing your fears, dealing with some maybe anxiety you have about something. And so when we are in the woods and we're just taking the next best step, what we imagine is in the woods around us is often worse than what's actually there, right? So when we're trying to take these paths and get through this fear and, go on this journey, the things that we imagine would happen to us if we failed are usually not real. They're our own creation, right? So this is to say that, not that there aren't real dangers and trials and tribulations. It's just that not to let our own imagination scare us, right? Don't imagine monsters and problems that aren't actually there. Okay. So when we get to this part in the narrative arc, right, this is like the dark night of the soul, if you're familiar with that. The main character has come to a point where they have to face something alone, right? They know that they have friends that support them, or loved ones, or parents, or something, but there's something specific that they have to do. And it's part of their character development, right? They have to change as a character through the process of the storytelling. So, it's good to have support. It's good to have, help. somebody trained them, somebody taught them something, somebody gave them something to help on their path, but they are the only ones that can make this journey. This could be a emotional journey, a spiritual journey, a mental journey, or like an actual physical journey, that is a metaphor for those things. But however it happens, your character has to go through this deep, dark, like learning to trust themselves and overcome fears that nobody else can do for them. Okay, so let's take a look at a little prompt here for our scene. For this section for our main character, what do we think our main character is challenged with? Okay. What are they gonna, encounter? What are they gonna overcome? Are there specific logistics? Like, what is going to happen to our main character? So you're going to need to decide if this is a mental journey, if this is an emotional journey, if it's a spiritual journey, if this is, you're actually going to move your character through a space to represent that journey. And it doesn't have to take long. It doesn't have to be a big, long section of your book. Maybe it's just a chapter, right? All right, let's see if we can get one more. Take that one. Okay. All right, so a lot of big, powerful energy here. So what I'm seeing for our character for this prompt is that when they start out on this path, right, on this specific solo dark night of the soul journey, they're the Knight of Cups, okay, and they are going forth with just their heart on their sleeve, emotional honesty, like raw emotion, that they feel compelled in a kind of heart-based, maybe even romantic way. Maybe the goal here is to save someone or to offer their love, or because they have to go through some kind of trial, they have to figure something out about themselves because there's this obstacle between them and the person they love, so they have to go through this process. Okay, the Hierophant represents structure, rites of passage. Okay, so it may be that the thing that your main character is going through is, a series of steps, right? When we look at the Hierophant, it is like the apprentice, the novice, and then the priest, right? There's like layers. If you think of it in terms of like schooling, it's like bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, right? There's a hierarchy to it. So maybe they are being initiated into a group. Maybe there are things they have to do to be able to be with the person that they want to be with, right? They have to prove themselves, and like master different levels of information, or physical trials or things like that. This is all about some kind of institutional structure and learning to go through the different phases of it, right? The hierarchy of phases. And then the end is the King of Rods, or the King of Wands. The King of Wands is a very charismatic, creative, dynamic person. They are like entrepreneurs. They are like the CEOs that will get everybody in a room from, the janitor to the, vice president, and just be like, hey, throw out the ideas. No bad ideas. Let's brainstorm. Let's think of things in a different way. Let's be creative. A little spontaneous, right? Maybe a little bit irresponsible. But this could be the person who's going to judge them at the end. This could be a position that they want, right? That they have to go through these kind of classes or training or, you know, obstacle courses, or however, whatever your setting is for your story. They will, when they get to the end, after they've gone through these three trials, these three levels of, knowledge, or just, acquiring the different, hierarchies, the different degrees, they have the ability to take command and be this creative, dynamic leader. Okay. So, thank you so much for joining me again this month. We have only 3 more cards left, and we will be all through the, the whole major arcana. So that's really exciting. We'll do something fun for November and December. Maybe just a speed run straight through the narrative arc. We'll see how it goes. We'll come up with something fun to do for November and December. But we only have 3 more cards after this, and we will have made it through the whole major arcana. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next month.